I never thought my own son would be ashamed of me, not Marcus. Not the boy I raised alone after his father walked out on us when he was just 4 years old. Not the child I worked 2 jobs for, so he could have those expensive basketball shoes all the other kids had. Thank you for being here. If this story touched you, please subscribe and don't forget to leave a comment. I read every one of them, and it's how I see just how far our stories are reaching. Not the teenager I stayed up at night after night, helping him finish his science project even though my eyes were burning from exhaustion. Not the young man I put through college with money I'd been saving since the day he was born. But there I was, sitting on the edge of my bed in the back room of his house, door locked from the outside, listening to the laughter and conversation floating down the hallway from his dinner party, the sounds of clinking glasses, and the subtle jazz music he always played when he wanted to impress someone seemed to mock me from behind that locked door. It had started innocently enough. Marcus and his wife Vanessa had invited me to live with them after I slipped in the shower and fractured my hip 3 months earlier. "Ma, you can't be alone in that house anymore," he'd said, his voice full of concern that I now realize was just impatience. "What if you fall again and nobody's there to help you?" I didn't want to leave my home. The small yellow house on Maple Street had been mine for 35 years. Every crack in the ceiling, every creaking floorboard told the story of our lives. Together, the pencil marks on the kitchen door frame that tracked Marcus's growth, the small burn mark on the countertop from when he tried to make me breakfast on Mother's Day when he was 10, the garden out back where we used to plant tomatoes every spring. That house held the memories of a life I'd built with my own hands. But Marcus insisted, and I was still wobbly on my feet with that walker. So I agreed, thinking it would just be for a few weeks while I healed. I packed one suitcase with a few changes of clothes, my medications, my favorite quilt that my mother had made, and a few framed photos. Marcus promised the rest of my things would be moved over gradually. They gave me the guest room at the back of their house. It was small but neat, with a view of their perfectly manicured backyard. Nothing like my wild, colorful garden with its butterflies and hummingbirds, but it was fine for a temporary stay. At least that's what I told myself. The first few weeks were awkward but manageable. Vanessa was polite but distant. She worked as an executive at some marketing firm and was rarely home before 7. In the evening, when she was home, she moved through the house with a kind of nervous energy, straightening things that were already straight, wiping surfaces that were already clean. She never said it outright, but I could tell my presence disrupted the careful order of her home. Marcus was working long hours too, trying to make partner at his law firm when he came home. He was distracted, often taking calls during dinner or staring at his phone. Still, he checked on me, made sure I took my medications, and sometimes sat with me in the evenings to watch my shows, even though I could tell he had no interest in them. Things changed about a month into my stay. I was feeling stronger, moving around with just a cane now instead of the walker. I'd started helping around the house. Nothing major, just folding some laundry, washing the breakfast dishes, preparing simple meals that would be ready when they got home. I thought I was being helpful. Vanessa saw it differently. "Gloria, I appreciate what you're trying to do," she said one evening, her voice tight as she rearranged the dishes I'd put away. "But I have a system for everything and it's just easier if you let me handle things my way." I nodded and stepped back, watching as she moved the plates from one cabinet to another. Her action suggesting my help was more of a nuisance than a contribution. It stung, but I told myself she was just particular. Some people are like that. Then came the comments about my cooking. "It's a bit heavy," Vanessa said, pushing her plate of smothered pork chops away after just 2 bites. "Marcus and I try to eat clean, you know, less fat, less salt." Marcus hadn't complained when he cleaned his plate and reached for seconds. But he didn't defend my cooking either. He just gave me an apologetic smile and shrugged, as if to say, "What can you do?" The real trouble started when they began having friends over. Vanessa's colleagues from work, Marcus's fellow lawyers, their neighbors, polished professional people who drove expensive cars and talked about vacation homes and investment portfolios. I tried to blend in, to be pleasant but unobtrusive, sitting quietly in the corner of their living room with my crocheting or a book. But I wasn't invisible enough, apparently. I overheard Vanessa talking to Marcus in their bedroom one night. The door was ajar, and I was walking past on my way to the bathroom. "Honey, we need to talk about your mother." Vanessa's voice was hushed but clear. "What about her?" Marcus sounded tired, disinterested. "Don't you notice the smell?" My steps faltered. I stood frozen in the hallway. "What smell?" He asked. "That old person smell. It's in the furniture now, the throw pillows on the couch. Even the kitchen sometimes smells like her perfume and that menthol rub she uses." I looked down at my hands, weathered and veined. I'd been using that same rub for my arthritic knees for years. The scent was so familiar to me that I hardly noticed it anymore. Jazz mentioned it after dinner last week, Vanessa continued. She asked if we've moved into a nursing home. There was a long pause and I held my breath, waiting for my son to defend me, to say something. Anything. What do you want me to do? He finally asked. Tell her she stinks? Of course not. Vanessa said quickly, but maybe suggest different products, or maybe it's time to think about alternatives. She's only been here 2 months. Vanessa. And how long was it supposed to be? A few weeks, you said. Another pause. I'll talk to her, Marcus finally said. But he never did, not directly. Instead, the bathroom in my room was suddenly stocked with new products, Sella soaps, different lotions, a new deodorant. My bottle of Jean cologne that I had used since I was 30 disappeared from the dresser. The message was clear, but I was too embarrassed to mention it. So I used the new products and said nothing. The night of the dinner party was when everything came to a head. Vanessa had been planning it for weeks. Some important clients of Marcus's were coming, along with a senior partner from his firm. The kind of evening that could make or break his chances for partnership. I offered to help, but Vanessa just smiled tightly and said, the best way you can help is by just enjoying your evening, Gloria. Maybe watch some TV in your room. I'll bring you a plate. It felt like being put in timeout, but I agreed. What else could I do? It was their house, their party. But as the afternoon wore on, I could see Vanessa getting more and more tense. She kept glancing at me, then looking away quickly when I caught her eye. Finally, an hour before the guests were due to arrive, she approached me in the kitchen, where I was making myself a cup of tea. Gloria, she said, her voice overly bright, I've been thinking. You've been working so hard lately, helping around the house. Why don't you take a nice long bath before the guests come? I bought you some new bath salts, lavender. Very relaxing. I looked at her, this woman my son had married 5 years ago, with her perfect blonde hair, and her perfect white teeth, and her perfect slim figure in that blue dress. That probably cost more than my monthly social security check. I already had my shower this morning, I said. But thank you, her smile faltered. Oh, well, maybe try the new perfume I left in your bathroom, it's very fresh. That's when I understood. She didn't want me to be clean. She wanted me to smell different. To not smell like me. I'm fine as I am, I said quietly, picking up my tea and turning to leave the kitchen. That's when Marcus came in. He'd just gotten home from work, still in his suit, looking harried. Ma, he said, kissing my cheek absently. Then he wrinkled his nose slightly. Have you been using that muscle rub again? The menthol one? I felt my face grow hot. My knees were bothering me today. Vanessa and Marcus exchanged a look over my head. Ma, Marcus said, his voice gentle in that way people use when they're about to say something unkind. Vanessa and I were thinking, maybe tonight you'd be more comfortable in your room. These clients, they can be pretty boring. All business talk. I don't mind, I said. I'll just sit quietly. I promise I won't interrupt. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. A gesture he'd had since childhood when he was frustrated. It's not that, Ma. It's just some people are sensitive to strong scents. And your muscle rub is very medicinal. Vanessa finished for him. We wouldn't want anyone to have a reaction. I looked from one to the other. My son wouldn't meet my eyes. I see, I said, though what I was seeing was breaking my heart. Then I'll stay in my room. Just for dinner, Marcus assured me quickly. Maybe join us for dessert. Vanessa made that chocolate thing you like. But we all knew that was a lie. There would be no joining for dessert, no chocolate thing I liked. I was being hidden away like something shameful. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. I could hear them in the kitchen. Their voices low but still carrying. She's upset, Marcus said. She'll get over it. Vanessa replied, this dinner is too important. Marcus, the Hamiltons could mean a huge account for you. I know. And I'm sorry. But she does smell like a medicine cabinet. Just noticed it last time and so did Rick and Paula. I sat very still. My hands gripping my cane so tightly my knuckles turned white. All those evenings I'd spent with their friends, thinking I was being polite and pleasant. And they were talking about how I smelled. The doorbell rang, and I heard Vanessa greeting the first guests, more arrivals, more cheerful hellos, the sound of ice and glasses, the murmur of conversation growing louder. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting, and made my way to the door. I wasn't going to hide in my room like a scolded child. I would join the party, be polite, and then return to my room on my own terms. But when I turned the door knob, nothing happened. I tried again, twisting harder this time. The door was locked out from the outside. I stood there in shock, my hand still on the knob. Had they actually locked me in? Like a dog they were afraid might jump on the guests. I tapped lightly on the door. Nothing. I knocked harder. After a moment, I heard hurried footsteps, then Marcus's voice, low and urgent through the door. Ma, everything okay? The door is locked, I said. My voice surprisingly steady given the storm brewing inside me. A pause. Yeah, sorry about that. The kids were messing with the locks last time they were here. Sometimes they stick, I'll fix it tomorrow. A lie. There were no children in this house, ever? Vanessa didn't like the noise. The mess, the unpredictability. Marcus's cousin had stopped bringing her kids over long ago. Open it now, please, I said. Another pause. Then, Ma, just try to get some rest, okay? I'll bring you a plate in a bit. Footsteps retreating, laughter from the dining room, the clink of silverware on plates. My son had locked me in my room because I smelled old. I stood there for a long moment, my heart hammering in my chest. Then I moved back to the bed and sat down, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me up. The reality of my situation crashed over me like a wave. I wasn't a guest in my son's home. I wasn't even family anymore. I was an inconvenience, an embarrassment, something to be managed and hidden away. And in that moment, as I listened to the dinner party continue without me on the other side of that locked door, I made a decision. This would not be my life. Not for one more day. I had raised that boy alone, put him through college, supported his dreams, welcomed his wife into our family even when she made it clear I wasn't welcome in hers. I had given everything, but I wouldn't give my dignity. That they could not have. I reached for my phone and slowly, carefully, began to make a plan. That night, after the last guest left and the house fell quiet, I waited for someone to unlock my door. My bladder was painfully full, my knees stiff from sitting so long in one position. The digital clock on the nightstand read 11:40 p.m. The dinner party had started at 7. I heard hushed voices in the hallway, then footsteps approaching my door. The lock clicked and Marcus peered in, his tie loosened, the smell of wine on his breath. Ma, you awake? He flipped on the light without waiting for an answer. I blinked against the sudden brightness. I need to use the bathroom, I said. My voice raspy from hours of silence. He stepped aside to let me pass, not meeting my eyes. I walked slowly, painfully to the bathroom across the hall, aware of him watching me, hovering like I might fall or make a scene. When I returned, he was still there, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. The dinner went really well, he said, his voice too bright. Mr. Hamilton was impressed with Vanessa's lobster risotto. I think there's a real chance they'll bring their business to the firm. I looked at my son, this stranger in expensive clothes who had locked his mother away like something shameful. That's nice, I said flatly. He cleared his throat. Listen, Ma, about tonight. I'm sorry about the door. It really does stick sometimes. Another lie. It's your house, I said, your rules. Don't be like that, you know we want you here. It's just, it was an important night. I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted beyond words. I understand. Important people don't want to smell old lady in their expensive risotto. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not like that. Vanessa just thought. We both thought that I stink, I finished for him. That I embarrass you in front of your friends. Nobody said that. He protested weakly. I heard you, both of you, talking about my smell. How your friends notice it, how I ruined the furniture. His face flushed. You were eavesdropping. I was walking to the bathroom and your door was open. Not exactly CIA surveillance. He looked away, jaw tight. You know Vanessa is particular about things. She likes everything just so. And I don't fit into just so, do I? Marcus sighed again, deeper this time. It's late, Ma. Let's talk about this tomorrow when we're not both tired and upset. But I knew there would be no real talk tomorrow, just more platitudes, more lies. More subtle pushing me into smaller and smaller spaces until I disappeared completely. Good night, Marcus, I said, effectively dismissing him from my room. He hesitated, then leaned down to kiss my cheek, a habit, nothing more, before leaving. He didn't lock the door again. But he might as well have, the damage was done. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the armchair by the window, looking out at the perfectly shaped shrubs in the moonlight, and thought about how I had come to this place. It hadn't happened all at once. The transfer of power, the slow erosion of my independence had been so gradual I hardly noticed it happening. First, it was Marcus and Vanessa helping me with my bills after my hip fracture. Then it was suggestions about what I should do with my house while I recovered at their place. It's just sitting empty, Ma. Why not rent it out? Or maybe it's time to think about selling. That neighborhood isn't what it used to be. I'd resisted at first, but Marcus was persistent. He talked about property values, about the repairs the house needed, about how the money from a sale could help secure my future. We're just thinking of you, Ma, he'd say, his voice so reasonable, so concerned. Then there was the matter of my things, my furniture, my clothes, my books, all the physical markers of my life. Vanessa had helped me pack for my stay, selecting just a few items, promising the rest would follow. But when I asked about my favorite reading chair, my collection of vinyl records, the china cabinet that had belonged to my mother. There were always excuses. There's really no room for that big chair, Ma. Those old records are just collecting dust. That cabinet is so dated and it's just taking up space and storage. As if my life's possessions were an inconvenience to be minimized, contained, eventually eliminated. Then there was the day I overheard Vanessa on the phone with the realtor. I wasn't supposed to be home. Marcus had taken me to a doctor's appointment, but it had been cancelled. We returned to find Vanessa in the kitchen, speaking in low, urgent tones. Yes, the closing is still set for the 15th. No, that won't be a problem. She'll sign whatever Marcus puts in front of her. Of course, it's all legal. She's fully competent. Look, we're handling it, okay? She'd seen us and abruptly ended the call, her face flushing. Just checking on a property for a client, she'd said smoothly. But I knew better. They were selling my house without telling me. I confronted Marcus that evening and he looked genuinely regretful. But not about the deception. We were going to surprise you, Ma. Everything's taken care of. The house sold for well above asking, and we've set up an account for you with the proceeds. An account I don't have access to, I guess. His expression had confirmed it. It's just simpler this way. You don't need to worry about managing that money. We'll make sure you have everything you need. Everything I need, as defined by them, as controlled by them. The next morning after the dinner party fiasco, I woke early, my body stiff from sleeping in the chair. The house was quiet. Marcus and Vanessa never rose before 7 on weekends. I moved slowly to the bathroom, took my usual shower, and dressed in one of my few remaining outfits. A simple blue dress that Vanessa actually approved of. At least it doesn't have those awful flowers all over it. I applied my face cream, a touch of lipstick, and ran a comb through my silver hair. Then, moving as quietly as I could, I made my way down the hall to Marcus's home office. The door was unlocked. They never worried about me snooping. I was just old, harmless Gloria who spent her days watching game shows and nodding off in the sunroom. The desk was immaculate, like everything in Vanessa's domain. I opened the top drawer, pens, paper clips, post-it notes. The second drawer held manila folders, neatly labeled. I rifled through them until I found what I was looking for. Mom, house sale. I opened it with trembling hands. There it was. The documentation of my erasure. The listing agreement for my house, the sale contract, the closing documents, and there on the final page my signature, except it wasn't my signature. It was close. Someone had clearly practiced. But the G in Gloria was all wrong. The loop too wide, the tail too short. My breath caught in my throat. They hadn't just sold my house without my knowledge. They had forged my signature to do it. I continued searching, finding another folder labeled Mom Accounts. Inside were bank statements, investment summaries, even a copy of my will. The one I'd made years ago, leaving everything to Marcus. According to these papers, the proceeds from my house sale, $340 to $1,000, far more than I'd realized it was worth, had been deposited into an account in Marcus's name, with me listed as a beneficiary, not an owner. Not an owner. There was also a life insurance policy I'd never seen before, taken out on me 6 months ago, with Marcus as a sole beneficiary, and a power of attorney document, again with my forged signature, giving Marcus complete control over my financial and medical decisions. I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. I had to grip the edge of the desk to steady myself. Mom? What are you doing in here? I turned to find Marcus in the doorway, his hair still mussed from sleep, wearing the silk pajamas Vanessa had given him for his birthday. His expression shifted from surprise to alarm as he saw the open folders on the desk. You've been going through my private papers. His tone was accusatory, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. I held up the house sale contract, my hand surprisingly steady. Is this my signature, Marcus? He blinked, then his face settled into something careful, controlled. Of course it is. You signed the papers, remember? We talked about it. We talked about possibly selling the house someday. We never agreed on anything. I never signed this. I pointed to the signature. Look at it, really look. That's not how I write my name. He took a step toward me, hands out placatingly. Mom, you're confused. You signed all of this. We went over everything carefully. I'm not confused, I said, my voice rising. I'm furious. You sold my house, my home, without my permission. You forged my signature. You put all the money in accounts I can't access. That's not true, he said. But his eyes shifted away from mine. The accounts are for you, to take care of you, to control me, I corrected. To make me dependent on you. Just like locking me in my room last night because I smelled too old for your fancy dinner party. His face flushed. That was a mistake. I apologized. A mistake. You deliberately locked your mother in a room like an animal because you were ashamed of her. And now I find out you've stolen her home, her money, her independence. I was shaking. But not from fear, from rage. We didn't steal anything, he protested. Everything we've done is for your benefit, to make sure you're taken care of. Without consulting me, without my consent. Making decisions about my life as if I'm already gone. I gathered the papers, clutching them to my chest. This stops. Now, Marcus, I'm calling the police. His expression changed then, hardened into something I'd never seen before. No, you're not. He moved toward me, reaching for the papers. Give those to me, Mom. Now. I stepped back, bumping against the desk. Don't touch me, you're overreacting, he said. His voice low and intense. Give me the papers and we'll talk about this rationally. There's nothing rational about fraud, I said. About stealing from your own mother. We didn't steal. What's going on? Vanessa appeared in the doorway. Her silk robe belted tightly around her waist, her face alarmed. I heard shouting. Mom's confused, Marcus said quickly. She found some paperwork and misunderstood. I understand perfectly, I said, looking Vanessa straight in the eye. I understand that you just sold my house without my knowledge, forged my signature on legal documents, and put all my money in accounts only Marcus can access. Vanessa's face went blank, a perfect mask. Gloria, you're clearly upset. Why don't you sit down? I'll make some tea, and we can discuss this calmly. I don't want tea, I said. I want my house. My money and my dignity back. Your house is gone, Vanessa said, her voice suddenly cold. The new owners moved in weeks ago. The money is safe, which is more than can be said for if you were managing it, and as for dignity. She looked me up and down. Maybe if you took better care of yourself, didn't smell like a hospital ward, and didn't eavesdrop on private conversations, you'd have some, Vanessa. Marcus looked shocked. But Vanessa was beyond pretense now. No, I'm done tiptoeing around. Your mother has been nothing but a burden since she moved in. Complaining about everything, rearranging my kitchen, cooking that greasy food that stinks up the whole house, embarrassing us in front of our friends with her outdated clothes, and her endless stories about back in my day. She made air quotes with her fingers. I've tried to be patient, but enough is enough. I stared at this woman, this stranger who had helped my son strip me of everything that was mine. I see, I said quietly. Thank you for your honesty, Vanessa. It's refreshing. After all the lies, Marcus stepped between us. Both of you, stop, this isn't helping. He turned to me. Mom, please, give me the papers. I promise we'll go through everything together, explain it all. There's nothing to explain, I said. It's very clear what you've done. I folded the papers and tucked them into the pocket of my dress. I'll be leaving now. Leaving? Marcus looked genuinely confused. To go where? Away from here. Away from both of you. Vanessa gave a short, harsh laugh. And how exactly are you going to manage that? You have no house, no car, and apparently, she smirked, no access to your money. She was right, of course. They had made sure I had nowhere to go, no resources to draw on. They had created the perfect trap, and I had walked right into it. But I had one thing they hadn't accounted for: a lifetime of facing challenges alone. After Marcus's father left, I had raised a child, maintained a home, and built a life on my own. I had survived loss, hardship, and loneliness. I was stronger than they knew. Stronger than perhaps I knew myself. I'll figure it out, I said, straightening my shoulders. I always have. I walked past them, head held high, back to my room at the end of the hall. The room with the door that locked from the outside. The room where they had tried to contain the inconvenient reality of my existence. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. They had taken my house, my money, and tried to take my dignity. But they had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated me. Back in my room, I sat on the bed, the stolen papers spread around me. My hands trembled. But my mind was clear. I needed help from someone Marcus and Vanessa couldn't control. I reached for my purse and pulled out my old address book, worn soft from years of handling. Most of my friends had moved away or passed on. Then my finger stopped on Ruby Jenkins. Ruby had been my neighbor for 20 years before moving closer to her daughter. We kept in touch with occasional calls and Christmas cards. More importantly, her son-in-law was a lawyer. I'd met him once at Ruby's birthday party. A serious man who had given me his card and told me to call if I ever needed anything. I checked the time, 8:30 a.m. I reached for my cell phone, then stopped. Marcus paid that bill. He could check the logs instead. I slipped the papers into my purse and made my way to the kitchen. The house was silent. Vanessa slept late on Saturdays, and Marcus had likely gone back to bed. I picked up the landline and dialed Ruby's number, my heart pounding. Hello? Ruby's voice came through, a little more frail than I remembered. Ruby? It's Gloria. Gloria? Lord, it's been an age. How are you, honey? I kept my voice low. Not good, Ruby. I'm in trouble and need help, real help. There was a pause. What kind of trouble? It's complicated. I need to talk to your son-in-law, the lawyer, Michael. What's going on? I took a deep breath. My son and his wife have taken everything, my house, my money. They forged my signature on documents. Last night they locked me in my room during a dinner party. Because they said I smelled old. Silence. Then Ruby's voice hardened. Where are you right now? At their house. They've gone back to bed. Can you get out? Come to me? I don't have a car. And they've taken my bank cards. I have maybe $40 cash. That's enough for a cab. Come to 1540 to Willow Lane. I'll call Michael. Don't tell Marcus where you're going. My throat tightened. They've taken almost everything, Ruby. Then just bring yourself and whatever evidence you have. What they've done is criminal. Now hurry. I hung up, hard hammering. This was really happening. I was leaving. I packed quickly. The stolen papers protected between clothing layers. My medications, my mother's brooch, and a small photo album. I left behind the clothes Vanessa had approved. The toiletries they bought to replace my offensive ones. I wrote a note. Marcus, I'm leaving. Don't try to find me. What you and Vanessa have done is wrong. I have copies of the forged documents. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. If you want to make this right, contact me. If not, I'll do what needs to be done. Mom, I left it on the bed, picked up my bag and cane, and made my way to the front door. The house was still quiet. I slipped out and called a cab from the sidewalk. 15 minutes later, I watched Marcus's house disappear behind me. I felt afraid, angry, grieved, but also strangely light. For the first time in months, I was making my own decision. Ruby was waiting when the cab arrived. She looked older, her hair completely white, her face more lined, but her eyes were still bright and sharp. Gloria, she said. Hurrying forward, she paid the driver, took my bag and led me inside. Michael's on the way. Ruby's house was nothing like Marcus and Vanessa's showplace. It was cluttered, lived in, with family photos everywhere and the smell of cinnamon in the air. It felt like a home. Sit down before you fall down, Ruby said, guiding me to an armchair. Let me get you some tea. I sank down. Suddenly exhausted, the adrenaline was fading, leaving me shaky. I closed my eyes, listening to Ruby in the kitchen, the kettle filling, cupboards opening, spoons clinking. When she returned with my tea, I told her everything about my fall, moving in with Marcus, the gradual erosion of my independence, the dinner party, the locked door, the forged documents. I spread the papers on her coffee table. Ruby's face grew grim. When I finished, she squeezed my hand. Gloria, I've known you for 30 years. You're one of the strongest women I've ever met. And this is how he repays you? I blinked back, tears. I keep wondering where I went wrong with him. You didn't, Ruby said firmly. This isn't on you, it's on him and that wife of his. The doorbell rang. Ruby returned with Michael Peterson, her son-in-law, Mrs. Simmons, he said, extending his hand. I'm sorry we're meeting again under these circumstances. I was grateful for his formal tone. I didn't need sympathy. I needed competence. He examined the papers, his expression serious. Based on what I'm seeing, you have grounds for several serious legal claims: fraud, financial elder abuse, possibly false imprisonment. The forged signatures alone are a criminal offense. A chill ran through me. Criminal, my son, a criminal. What can we do? I asked quietly. First, we need to secure your safety and independence, Michael said. Do you have anywhere to stay besides with Ruby? I shook my head. My house is gone. Marcus controls all my money. Not all of it, Michael said, reviewing a statement. The proceeds from your house sale were deposited into an account at First National. It's in Marcus's name, but you're listed as a source. We can petition for an emergency freeze based on the fraud evidence. And in the meantime, you'll stay with me, Ruby said firmly. I've got a spare room. I started to protest, but Ruby stopped me. Don't even think about saying no. Michael turned to me. Mrs. Simmons, I need your permission to pursue this legally. That means filing complaints, possibly pressing charges against your son and his wife. Are you prepared for that? Could I really take my own son to court? The boy I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for. But then I remembered the locked door, the way Vanessa had looked at me like something unpleasant. How Marcus had chosen her over me. How they'd stripped me of everything, my home, my possessions, my dignity. Yes, I said, my voice stronger. I want my life back. Michael nodded. We'll start right away. I'll file for an emergency hearing Monday to freeze the accounts and invalidate the power of attorney. They'll fight this, I warned. Marcus knows many lawyers, so do I, Michael said calmly. And I've been practicing elder law for 20 years. What they've done is illegal. We have the evidence. My phone buzzed. Marcus, no doubt. I ignored it. There's one more thing, I said. My son. I still love him. I don't want to ruin his life. I just want what's mine. Michael's expression softened. I understand. We'll focus on recovering your assets. But Mrs. Simmons, your son may not come out of this unscathed. What he's done has consequences. I know. I nodded, and maybe it's time he learned that. Ruby's phone rang. She checked the caller ID. It's him. Don't answer, I said quickly. We listened as the answering machine picked up. Marcus's voice filled the room, frantic yet calculated. Ruby? It's Marcus. If my mother is there, tell her to call immediately. She's confused, not thinking clearly. Tell her to come home before this gets worse. He was already creating his narrative. Poor confused Gloria. Not in her right mind. He doesn't know you have the documents. Michael observed. No. I agreed. He doesn't know a lot of things about me. Not anymore. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. Mom, please come home. We're worried you're not well. I turned the phone off. He could worry all he wanted. I wasn't going home. Because that house had never been my home. It had been my prison. And now, finally, I was breaking free. The weekend passed in a blur. I slept in Ruby's spare room, in a bed with a quilt her mother had made, under family photos of people I didn't know. I woke several times that first night, disoriented, my hip aching before remembering where I was and why. Safe, but homeless, free. But adrift. My phone kept buzzing until the battery died. I didn't charge it. Michael had advised against contacting Marcus until we'd secured legal protections. Anything you say can be twisted, he warned. Let him worry for now. By Sunday afternoon, Marcus had started calling Ruby's neighbors. Mrs. Henderson from next door knocked on the door. Concerned. There's a man asking if Ruby has a visitor, says his mother is unwell, confused. Is everything all right? Ruby handled it smoothly. Tell him if he's looking for his mother, he should file a missing persons report with the police. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were steel. Mrs. Henderson nodded, understanding more than was said. Monday morning came, and with it, Michael. He arrived at 8, dressed in a charcoal suit, carrying a leather briefcase that looked as serious as he did. We have a 10 a.m. emergency hearing with Judge Watkins, he said. She takes elder abuse cases very seriously. What should I wear? I asked, suddenly conscious of my limited wardrobe. Exactly what you have on, Michael said. You're not on trial. Mrs. Simmons, you're the victim. The word stung, but it was accurate. I was a victim of my son, of his wife, of my own blind trust. The courthouse was an imposing limestone building in the center of town. Michael helped me up the steps, his hand steady under my elbow. Inside, the marble floors gleamed, our footsteps echoing. I felt small, like a child. Sent to the principal's office. Double quotes Mrs. Simmons. Michael's voice pulled me back. Judge Watkins will likely ask you some questions. Just answer honestly. The documents speak for themselves. I nodded, gripping my cane tighter. Judge Watkins was a black woman in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She listened intently as Michael presented our case, her expression revealing nothing. When he finished, she examined the documents carefully, comparing the signatures. Her frown deepening. Mrs. Simmons, she said finally, looking up at me. Did you authorize your son to sell your home? No, Your Honor. Did you sign a power of attorney giving him control of your finances? No, Your Honor. I never even saw those documents until I found them in his office. She nodded, turning to her clerk. I'm granting the emergency petition to freeze the account at First National Bank, containing proceeds from the sale of 1423 Maple Street. I'm also invalidating the power of attorney. She looked back at me. Mrs. Simmons, do you wish to pursue criminal charges for the forgery? The question I'd been dreading. I hesitated. Not at this time, Your Honor. I just want my house money back. She nodded again, understandable. But be aware the statute of limitations gives you time to change your mind. She signed the order with a decisive stroke. The account is frozen, effective immediately. We'll schedule a hearing in 2 weeks to determine final disposition. Just like that, it was done. The first step toward reclaiming my life had taken less than 30 minutes. As we left the courthouse, Michael looked pleased. That went well. Judge Watkins clearly believes you. The frozen account gives us leverage. What happens now? I asked as we descended the steps. Now we wait for Marcus's response. When he tries to access that money and can't, he'll get the notification about the freeze. Then he'll either contact us directly, or he'll hire an attorney. And if he does neither, Michael smiled thinly, that would be unwise. The court order requires his response within 10 days. Back at Ruby's, I sat on the porch in a wicker chair, sipping iced tea and watching the neighborhood. Children rode by on bikes. A mail carrier delivered packages. A woman walked her dog. Normal life. I wondered what my life would look like when this was over. Would I have a porch to sit on, a neighborhood to watch, or just a room in some facility, the fate Marcus and Vanessa had planned for me? The phone rang inside. Ruby answered, then came to the door, her expression troubled. It's for you, she said. Marcus. I followed her inside, my heart pounding. She handed me the phone and stepped away. giving me privacy while staying close. Hello, Marcus, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mom, his voice was tight with anger. What the hell are you doing, taking back what's mine, by going to court, by freezing my accounts? Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done. The question is, do you know what you did? Selling my house without my consent? Forging my signature? Locking me in a room like an animal? He made a frustrated sound. That's not how it was. You're twisting everything, am I? Tell me, Marcus, did I sign those papers? Silence. Then, you weren't thinking clearly. We did what was best for you by stealing from me, by planning to put me in a home, by making me feel worthless in my own family. That's not fair. We took you in when you couldn't manage on your own, and turned me into a prisoner. Don't pretend this was charity, Marcus, this was theft. What do you want? His voice was cold now. I want the money from my house sale transferred to an account in my name. I want my personal belongings returned, and I want an apology from you and Vanessa for how you've treated me. He laughed, a harsh sound. An apology? You embarrass us in front of our friends, sneak out like a thief, freeze our accounts, and you want an apology, your accounts? That's my house money, Marcus. Money you took through fraud. We're contesting that. I've already called our attorney. Good, I said. I look forward to hearing his explanation for the forged signatures. Another silence. This isn't you, Mom. You've never been vindictive and you've never been cruel. Never been cruel. I guess we're both discovering new things about each other. Think about what you're doing, he said, his tone shifting to something softer, persuasive. This could get ugly. Things could come out that you wouldn't want public. About your memory lapses, your confusion, the medications you've been taking, a threat, thinly veiled. He was going to try to declare me incompetent. Do what you need to do, Marcus, I said, suddenly tired. So will I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking. Ruby appeared with fresh tea. You okay? He's going to fight, I said, and he's going to play dirty. Let him try, Ruby said firmly. Michael's already filed a petition for you to undergo a competency evaluation with an independent doctor. We're ahead of him. I looked at her in surprise. Michael did that? She nodded. He's seen this before. Adult children trying to take control by claiming their parent is incompetent. The evaluation protects you. I sipped my tea, thinking Marcus wouldn't give up easily. He had too much to lose. Money, reputation, maybe even his career if the forgery became public. He'd fight with everything he had dodged. So would I dot that evening? I called my old neighbor, Betty Thompson. She'd been watching my house for me before it was sold, watering my plants, collecting mail. I hadn't spoken to her since moving to Marcus's. Gloria, she exclaimed. I've been worried sick. Marcus said you were staying with him while recovering. But then strangers started emptying your house. I tried calling you, but your number was disconnected. I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner. I said, it's complicated. Betty, did you see what happened to my things? Some went to Marcus's. I think the rest was sold at an estate sale. I tried to buy your china cabinet, but that wife of his said it wasn't for sale. Already promised to someone, she said. My mother's cabinet, the one Marcus had claimed, was just taking up space in storage. I need a favor, I said. If you have any pictures of my house, my things, especially from the last few months, could you send them to me? I do have some, Betty said. I took photos when they were moving things out. It didn't feel right, how they were handling everything. I can email them. Another piece falling into place. Evidence of what they'd taken, what they'd sold without my knowledge. When Michael called the next morning with news of my competency evaluation, scheduled for Thursday, I was ready with my own information. Betty Thompson has photos of them emptying my house, I told him, and she can testify they sold my things without my consent. Michael sounded pleased. Excellent. The more evidence, the better. Marcus's attorney called, by the way. They're requesting a settlement conference already. I was surprised. What does that mean? It means they're worried. They want to resolve this quietly, without a formal hearing. I thought that's what Marcus would want to. I admitted it is. But he's also banking on you backing down. Family pressure can be intense in these cases. I thought of Marcus's phone call, his attempt at manipulation, his thinly veiled threats. Yes, he was counting on me giving in, accepting some token settlement to avoid conflict. The old Gloria might have done exactly that. But I wasn't that Gloria anymore. The competency evaluation was scheduled for Thursday at Dr. Eleanor Wells' office, a respected neuropsychologist who often testified in court cases. Michael drove me there, reviewing what to expect. She'll conduct several cognitive tests. He explained, memory, reasoning, judgment. Just answer honestly. Don't try to impress or overperform. The office was in a converted Victorian house, warm and professional. Dr. Wells was a slender woman in her 50s with kind eyes, but in no nonsense manner. Mrs. Simmons, she said, shaking my hand. I understand your son is claiming you're experiencing cognitive decline. Yes, I said. Though he only started saying that after I discovered he'd been forging my signature and selling my possessions. Doctor? Wells' mouth quirked in a slight smile. I see. Well, let's find out what's actually going on. The evaluation took 3 hours. Tests of my memory, attention, language skills, problem-solving abilities. Some were simple, some challenging, throughout. Dr. Wells remained neutral, giving nothing away. We're done, she finally said. I'll have my report ready by Monday. And then what? I asked. I'll submit it to the court with copies to your attorney and your son's. It will speak for itself. I left feeling drained but strangely confident. I'd done my best to answer truthfully. Whatever the result, at least it would be honest. 2 days later, Michael called with news. Marcus's attorney has requested a settlement meeting on Tuesday. They want to resolve this privately before Dr. Wells' report is filed. What does that tell you? I asked. That they're worried about what that report will say, Michael replied. They want to control the narrative. What should we do? I think we should meet. It's always better to settle if the terms are right. Less stressful, less expensive. But we go in strong, no compromises on the key issues, I agreed. And the meeting was set for Tuesday morning at Michael's office. I barely slept the night before, my mind racing with all the things I wanted to say to Marcus. All the hurt and anger I kept inside. Ruby helped me dress that morning, lending me a navy blue cardigan that matched my slacks. You look strong, she said, adjusting the collar. Like yourself again. Michael's office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. We arrived early, and he showed me to a conference room with a long table and leather chairs. They'll be here at 10, Michael said. Marcus, his wife, and their attorney. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I can handle everything. I shook my head. No. I need to speak for myself. At precisely 10 o'clock, they arrived. Marcus looked tired, the circles under his eyes pronounced. Vanessa was perfectly put together as always, but her smile was tight, forced. Their attorney was an older man with silver hair and an expensive suit. Mrs. Simmons, he said, nodding to me. I'm James Harrington, representing your son and daughter-in-law. I'm hoping we can resolve this matter amicably. That would depend on your definition of amicable, Michael replied coolly. My client has been the victim of serious financial abuse and fraud. Harrington frowned. Those are serious allegations, Mr. Peterson. My clients have a very different perspective on what occurred. I'm sure they do, Michael said. However, the forged signatures on the house sale documents and power of attorney speak for themselves. There was no forgery, Marcus cut in, his voice tight. Mom signed those papers, she's just forgotten. I looked at my son, really looked at him, for the first time since entering the room. His face was familiar yet strange. The features I'd known for decades arranged in an expression I barely recognized, defensive, angry, cold. Do you really believe that? I asked quietly. Or is that just what you're telling yourself so you can sleep at night? Marcus flushed. You needed help, Mom. You couldn't live alone anymore. Everything we did was for your own good, including locking me in my room during your dinner party? Was that for my own good too? Harrington looked startled. What's this? About a locked room. It was a misunderstanding, Vanessa said quickly. The door stuck. Old house. Old hardware. We've already explained this, Gloria. The door didn't stick, I said flatly. Marcus locked it deliberately because you said my smell was embarrassing you in front of your friends. There was an uncomfortable silence. Harrington glanced at Marcus, who wouldn't meet his eyes. Let's focus on the financial matters, Harrington said finally. My clients are willing to release half the proceeds from the house sale to Mrs. Simmons. Immediately, the remainder would be held in a trust for her care. Michael scoffed. Half? The entire amount belongs to Mrs. Simmons. It was her house, sold without her authorization. And we're not interested in any trust your clients control. There are expenses to consider, Harrington argued, the renovations before sale, the ongoing costs of Mrs. Simmons' care. I'm not staying with them, I interrupted, and I never asked for renovations. I loved my house exactly as it was. Harrington looked at me with practiced sympathy. Mrs. Simmons, with all due respect, living independently may not be realistic given your health issues. My health is just fine, I said, and we'll have Dr. Wells report on Monday to confirm that. A flicker of concern crossed Marcus's face. Mom, be reasonable. You had a bad fall. You need support. I need my money and my freedom, I corrected him, and an apology would be nice. Vanessa made a small, dismissive sound. Marcus shot her a warning look or offer a stance. Harrington said, half now, half in trust plus all personal effects. Still in my client's possession, which is what exactly? Michael asked. We received reports that most of Mrs. Simmons' belongings were sold at an estate sale. Only items she didn't need anymore, Vanessa said. Outdated furniture, old clothes. My mother's china cabinet, I asked, my vinyl records, the quilt my grandmother made. Did I not need those anymore? Vanessa at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. Marcus just stared at the table. Here's your counteroffer, Michael said. The full amount from the house sale transferred to Mrs. Simmons within 48 hours. A detailed accounting of all items removed from her home, with market value compensation for anything sold, and a written apology acknowledging the forced confinement and unauthorized use of her property. Absolutely not, Harrington said immediately. My clients admit no wrongdoing. Then I guess we'll see you in court, Michael replied, starting to gather his papers with Dr. Wells' report, Mrs. Thompson's photographs, and the forged documents. I'm quite confident in our position. Wait, Marcus said suddenly. He looked at his attorney. Can we have the room? Just my mother and me. Harrington hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, everyone filed out, leaving Marcus and me alone in the conference room. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Why are you doing this? He finally asked, his voice low. Why are you trying to destroy us? I'm not trying to destroy anyone, I said. I'm trying to get back what's mine. We were taking care of you. No, Marcus, you were controlling me. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. The money from the house, it's gone. I stared at him, uncomprehending. What do you mean, gone? Most of it. We used it as a down payment on a vacation property in Florida, an investment opportunity. It was supposed to be for all of us. I felt dizzy. Like the floor was tilting beneath me. You spent my money on a vacation home without asking me. It wasn't like that. He insisted. We were going to surprise you. A place we could all enjoy. A place I never asked for, never wanted, and would probably never see. I said, my voice hollow. Why, you sold the home I loved and the things that mattered to me. Marcus looked away. We can sell the Florida property. It might take some time. But how much is left? I interrupted. He hesitated. About $50,000. The rest is tied up in the property. Almost $300,000 of my money, spent without my knowledge or consent, my home, my security, my future, converted to an investment opportunity I had no say in. And my things, my mother's cabinet, my records, the cabinets in storage, the records. Vanessa sold them. She said no one uses vinyl anymore. I closed my eyes briefly, absorbing the latest blow. You know what hurts the most, Marcus, not the money, not even my possessions, is that you saw me as something to manage, not someone to respect. You locked me away, literally and figuratively, because I was inconvenient. That's not true. He protested, but his eyes told a different story. I want my money back, I said firmly, all of it. I want my cabinet back. And I want to never again be treated like I'm less than human because I'm old. And used menthol rub on my knees. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. I don't know if I can fix this, he finally said. Then find someone who can, I replied, because I'm not backing down. The door opened and the others filed back in. One look at Marcus's face told them the private conversation hadn't gone as he'd hoped. Well, Harrington asked. Marcus straightened his shoulders. We need to make this right, he said quietly. All of it. 3 months. That's how long it took to untangle the mess Marcus and Vanessa had made of my life. 3 months of legal documents, property listings, negotiations, and uncomfortable silences. The Florida property sold faster than expected. The real estate market was hot. And apparently the investment opportunity Marcus had jumped at was actually a decent one. The sale gave us back most of my house money, though not all. Some of it had vanished into renovations and closing costs, a loan to Vanessa's brother that would never be repaid, and other expenses Marcus couldn't or wouldn't fully explain. During those 3 months, I stayed with Ruby. Her spare room became my room. Her routines became my routines. We drank coffee on her porch in the mornings, worked on a quilt together in the afternoons, watched old movies at night. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was peaceful. It was mine. Dr. Wells' report came back exactly as I'd hoped. I was cognitively intact, fully competent, showing no signs of dementia or significant memory impairment. Mrs. Simmons demonstrates normal age-appropriate cognitive function with no indication of decline, warranting intervention. She wrote, the report effectively ended any attempt by Marcus to claim I needed someone else to manage my affairs. Eventually, we reached a settlement. Marcus would transfer all recovered funds to an account in my name only. He would return all items still in his possession, and pay fair market value for those that had been sold. He and Vanessa would both sign a document acknowledging that I was competent to manage my own affairs and that they would not attempt to interfere with my finances. or living arrangements in the future. In return, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges for the forgery. It was a concession Michael advised against, but I stood firm. Whatever Marcus had done, whatever he had become, he was still my son. I couldn't bear the thought of him facing criminal charges, possibly losing his law license because of my actions. The forgery would remain our secret, a scar between us that would never fully heal but wouldn't destroy his future. With the settlement money, I faced a choice: buy another house or find somewhere else to live. My old neighborhood had changed. In the months since I'd left, new families had moved in, property values had increased, and the comfortable familiarity I'd known for 35 years was gone. It didn't feel like home anymore. Then Ruby mentioned that her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Palmer, was moving to Arizona to live with her daughter. Her house, a small but charming bungalow with a wide front porch and a garden full of roses, was going on the market. It would be perfect for you, Ruby said one morning as we sat on her porch drinking coffee. And we'd still be neighbors. I looked at the little blue house next door. It needed some work. Paint was peeling around the windows, the gutters were sagging, but it had good bones, and more importantly, it was close to the one person who had stood by me when I needed it most. I think Mrs. Palmer might be willing to sell directly to you, Ruby continued. Save you both some money on realtor fees. A week later, I signed the papers. The house was mine, all mine, with no Marcus, no Vanessa. No one to tell me where to put the dishes or what products to use or how I smelled. The day I got the keys, Ruby helped me do a walkthrough. The house was empty, Mrs. Palmer having taken only her personal items to Arizona, leaving the furniture for the next owner as part of the deal. It needs some updating, Ruby observed, running her hand over the worn kitchen countertop. But it's got good light. It's perfect, I said. I meant it, not because it was flawless, but because it was mine. My choice, my space, my future. Over the next few weeks, I made the house my own. I had the bathroom remodeled to include grab bars and a walk-in shower, making it safer for me as I continued to age. I replaced the sagging gutters, painted the peeling window frames, and planted new rose bushes to join the established ones. I hung my mother's cameo on the wall in the living room and placed a few family photos I'd managed to keep on the mantle. Ruby helped me find my mother's china cabinet in the storage unit Marcus had rented. It was scratched on one side and missing a piece of trim, but it was still beautiful, still mine. We cleaned it thoroughly and positioned it in the dining room, where the morning sun made the polish would glow. I was arranging teacups in the cabinet when the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Marcus standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched. I hadn't seen him since the final settlement meeting 6 weeks earlier. We communicated through attorneys since then, a formal distance that hurt but felt necessary. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Not yet, Mom, he said, his voice uncertain. Your place looks nice. Thank you. An awkward silence stretched between us. Marcus shifted his weight, looked down at his shoes, then back at me. I wanted to see how you're settling in, he said finally. If you need anything, I'm fine, I replied. Ruby's been helping me. He nodded, glancing toward Ruby's house next door. She's a good friend, the best, I agreed. More silence. A car drove by. Children laughed somewhere down the street. Normal sounds of a normal day. While my son stood on my porch like a stranger. I made a mess of everything, he said suddenly, the words tumbling out. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, really sorry. I studied his face, looking for the calculation I'd seen these past months, the manipulation, the coldness. Instead, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: my son. The boy who'd brought me dandelions from the yard, the teenager who'd hugged me after his father left, the young man who cried when I pinned the boutonniere on his prom tuxedo. Vanessa left, he added when I didn't respond, filed for divorce last week. I wasn't surprised. Their marriage had been built on shared ambition and materialism, not love or respect. Without my money to fuel their plans, without the veneer of caring for the elderly mother to mask their greed, they had nothing left. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Whatever Vanessa had done, whatever she'd encouraged in Marcus, I wouldn't wish the pain of divorce on anyone. Don't be, he said with a wry smile. It's for the best. We weren't good together. We brought out the worst in each other. I didn't contradict him. It was the most self-aware thing I'd heard him say in years. I'm living in my car until I find a place, he continued. Most of our money was tied up in the house. And with the Florida property sale and the settlement to you, he trailed off. Not asking for sympathy, just stating facts. It explained his rumpled appearance, the shadows under his eyes, the strain in his voice. Part of me wanted to invite him in, offer him the spare bedroom, slip back into the role of mother protecting child. But we weren't there yet. Maybe never would be. There are some affordable apartments on Westfield Avenue, I said instead. Decent management, utilities included. He nodded. I'll look into it. Thanks. Another silence, less awkward this time. Would you like some coffee? I asked finally. We could sit on the porch, a small olive branch. Smaller than he might have hoped for, but all I could offer right now. I like that, he said quietly. I brought 2 mugs out to the porch, where the morning sun was warming the wooden floorboards. We sat in rocking chairs, sipping coffee, looking out at the quiet street. I use your perfume, Marcus said suddenly. After you left, I found it in the bathroom cabinet. I would put it on my wrist sometimes just to smell it, to remind me of you. I looked at him in surprise. The Jean Nate? The one Vanessa threw away because it smelled too old. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. It never smelled old to me. It smelled like home. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me was still angry, still hurt. But another part, the part that had loved this man since the moment I first held him in my arms, ached to bridge the gap between us. Maybe you can come for dinner. Sometime, I said carefully, not today. But sometime. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was an acknowledgement that the door wasn't completely closed between us. I like that, he said. We finished our coffee in silence, watching a pair of cardinals hop around my newly planted flower bed. When he left, I didn't ask when I'd see him again. That would come in its own time if it was meant to come at all. I took the mugs inside, washed them, and placed them in the cabinet where I had decided they belonged. Then I went back out to the porch, sat in my rocking chair, and closed my eyes, feeling the sun on my face. My house, my choice, my life, my terms, and if someday Marcus earned back a place in that life, it would be as an equal, not as a keeper, not as a jailer. Never again would I be locked away, figuratively or literally, because I was inconvenient, because I was old, because I smelled like the woman I had always been. I opened my eyes and looked toward the street, where Marcus's car was disappearing. Around the corner, he had lost everything trying to control me, and I had found myself by breaking free.